Good morning everyone, good evening, and good afternoon to viewers from all walks of life. This is Denzomus, and you are welcome to the channel of truth, enlightenment, freedom, and the channel of breaking empaths free. If you are new, in this channel I talk about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, I talk about spirituality, and I talk about personal and self-development. And if any of that stuff resonates with you, I invite you guys to join us. Give us a like, share this video with your friends, and you may subscribe if you haven't already. And for those that have always been with us, you are welcome back, and I thank you for your love and support. So guys, I always ask you to share these videos because I do not say you must share these videos, but I just ask you to share this video. You may share this video, and of course, this kind of content, it's not only you who needs this content. So sometimes you find there's other individuals who don't have access to these channels like you do. So by you sharing this kind of videos, especially if you know other people are going through this kind of narcissistic abuse, the things like that, or even sometimes spiritual awakening and the things like that, you can always share these videos. Because recently I've seen some kind of people who are just finding my channel. You know what I mean? I've been sharing videos for about 2.5 years now. And there are some people who are just finding my channel recently, and a lot of stuff is resonating with them. So they are wondering why they couldn't really find my content at the right time. Yes, I understand sometimes things happen in divine timing, but sometimes you can also help to share this kind of material to other people, because when we share, we also share the information with other people around us, and we help the world to become a better place. So in this particular one, I'm going to talk about the grief after leaving the narcissist. Now, listen guys very closely. One of the hardest things you can ever experience in your life, I don't know who you are out there who is watching this video, but one of the hardest things you will ever come across in your life is leaving a narcissist. It is one of the most painful experiences you can ever imagine. Now, when I'm talking about pain, if you have not dealt with the narcissist and you have not left a narcissist, then you have not seen what they call pain. Now, of course, when I'm talking about pain, there is also pain, because I don't say that all breakups happen with the narcissists. So breakups will happen also with healthy individuals. There are some other individuals who they're healthy beings. They don't mean bad for the other one, but sometimes it happens that sometimes the things just don't work out, and at the end of the day, they just like decide to go separate ways. You know what I mean? So the breakups can also happen with the original normal empaths sometimes, but the most painful breakup you can ever think about is the breakup that involves the empath and the narcissist. Because remember that relationship, or whatever you want to call it, situationship, entanglement, that kind of situation involves something what they call a trauma bond. And the trauma bond is the most difficult thing to break. If you have broken the trauma bond, I'm very interested in that. If I've been able and managed to break the trauma bond, I would even sometimes want to know that in the comment section below. It's very, very difficult to break a trauma bond. But also I want to state also that leaving a narcissist or leaving any other relationship, you also experience something what they call grief. So sometimes you're going to find yourself grieving. You know what I mean? So the pain that you're going to experience in any kind of relationship, any end of a relationship, is the similar pain that you also experience when you have actually lost a loved one. So when somebody has passed on, whether it has been a family member, whether it has been a friend, whether it has been anybody that you know, it is the same pain that you're going to experience when you have lost somebody that you really, really deeply love on a deep level. So grief has got to happen. So a lot of situations you find a lot of people, especially the empaths, because sometimes you also have the codependent empaths. So those are the empaths who they decide to stick on to very, very toxic situations, because sometimes they are codependent. So they just need some kind of a validation. They need some kind of, they have got a lot of attachment issues. So sometimes the codependent empaths, they really attach themselves. Now, I was a codependent empath many years ago. You know what I mean? So you attach yourselves to people that are toxic, because sometimes you think, oh, maybe those individuals, you have got children with them. Sometimes maybe you have got mortgages with them. You bought a house with them. So sometimes you're attaching yourself to, maybe sometimes it could be something as simple as just paying your bills. Maybe they're giving you a place to stay or something like that. So you attach yourself to those individuals because you don't want to let them go, because you've got something in the back of your mind that when you separate yourself from those situations, you're going to feel a lot of pain. And yes, it is true, like I've said in the beginning of this video, that pain of leaving a toxic individual is unbearable, because those toxic individuals, leaving them also involves something what they call a trauma bond. So you are trauma bonded with them in some kind of a toxic way, and leaving them becomes very, very difficult and extremely difficult, which is the reason why you see sometimes most of the empaths, when they have left this kind of toxic, the narcissists and all things like that, some of the empaths, they end up gravitating back to those individuals, because when they leave the narcissist, when they are out there, the pain that they feel is unbearable, and sometimes the pain can get to that point whereby you don't want to feel that pain anymore. Now, I've seen it along my journey. I've seen it with sometimes the clients I've been helping sometimes, and I've seen it with a lot of people that I know. So a lot of people, when they leave toxic individuals, narcissists, they go out there and then they start to experience a very deep level of pain, and sometimes the pain is very overwhelming for the empath. And the empath, now what they do, because they cannot handle that level of pain, that degree of pain, so what they do, they gravitate back and go back to the toxic individuals just for them to heal them. Now, I want to make this one very clear. You may know that already, but I want to stress it out in this video that the very person who broke you down, now listen to this, guys, the very person that broke you down in the first place, now in this case we're talking about the narcissist, because you guys already know that at the end of this kind of relationships with the narcissist, there's a lot of things involved, there's a lot of pain involved, there's a lot of abuse involved. Now that person breaks you down and discards you most of the cases, because usually the narcissists, they like to discard the empaths. They tend to discard the empaths, although sometimes it can happen vice versa. The same person that has broken you down is not the same person that is going to heal you. Let me repeat this, guys, listen very closely. The very person that has broken you down in the first place and brought you to that level of pain, to that degree of pain, is not the same person that is going to heal you. So the healing, normally, for you to be able to experience the healing, when you have broken up with those kind of individuals, it is important for you to step out, go out and start grieving. You see, at the end of the narcissistic relationship, the very first thing what you're going to do when you have ended the narcissistic relationship is to accept your soul to grieve. Because remember, like I've said in the beginning, the grief you experience when you're living a narcissist and those toxic individuals is unbearable, and is the same grief you're going to experience when you have lost a loved one, when somebody has actually passed away or died or things like that. So that grief, you're supposed to understand that it is supposed to happen, because some of the people heal through the grief. So because through the grief, remember, now when I'm talking about grief, we also understand that a lot of people grieve differently. You know what I mean? So there's some people who grieve by crying. They can just cry their tears out. They can just lock themselves in the room and cry and cry and cry. There's some people who grieve by breaking a lot of things around the house. So sometimes you may see somebody, if a breakup has happened and things like that, even you guys have seen it on the movies sometimes. You see a lot of them throwing plates around the house, breaking a cup or two, things like that. So some people, they grieve in that kind of a way. Now, what is happening in the soul, spiritually, you're releasing a very toxic energy. You know what I mean? So this is another energy that has been inbuilt within you over a long period of time. So by you leaving those individuals, now you start to break a cup, you break a plate, you break something like that. Now, it doesn't always mean that, like I've said previously in my videos, the narcissists, they also do those kind of things. But the empath can do that when they're trying to release that kind of energy out of their body. You know what? Because their soul is in pain and their soul is hurting. So what they do, sometimes they may break a plate or two. But of course, the empath does not cause a very significant amount of damage. So because the empath, remember, the empath, like I've said in my videos, the empath always has got a stop button. So they can always know their limits. When they're starting to get out of order and things like that, they may break a plate, they may break two, but they're not going to cause very huge, significant amounts of damage. Unlike the narcissists, who are going to go on and break the windows and break the cars and break everything around the house. So some people grieve in that way. Some people grieve by staying alone, isolated in some kind. They may sometimes decide to lock themselves up in the room, and they may decide to just stay by themselves. They don't want anybody. They switch off their phones. They will switch off all the social media. They will allow themselves to grieve. And I applaud, because I know there are some guys that I know personally who know how to grieve in that kind of a way. I really applaud those kind of individuals, because they don't cause any chaos. They don't cause any drama. They just lock themselves up in the room somewhere. They isolate themselves, and they allow this thing to settle down, and they release that kind of energy in a slowly manner. And I think in my own way, I've experienced like the crying one. It didn't happen a lot, of course. I had to cry this thing out, and I had to cry this energy out. And I also experienced a lot of solitude. So when I left the narcissist, I had to grieve in that kind of a way. But I just decided to sit down by myself, lock myself up in the room. I stopped work in those days. I remember I called my workplace and I took some days off. Actually, I took weeks off. I think I took about 2 or 3 weeks off. I just decided to sit down by myself and absorb this whole thing, that digest this whole thing, and see where to get on from there. So the grief, most of you guys have got to understand that the grief always have got to happen. You always have got to allow yourself to grieve in each and every. Like I've said, many people heal differently. So some people grieve in many different kinds of ways. You can always find the way that is comfortable for you. But again, for the most of the empaths, especially the women, they like to cry. So remember, when you're crying, it doesn't make you look any less of a human being. So it doesn't make you look stupid or things like that. You have to know that when you're crying, it is a way and a form of releasing the energy, because that energy that has been inbuilt in your body for a very long period of time, it is the only way that energy can leave your body, because your body and soul. So when you're crying, you're actually releasing that energy out of your body, and you're letting that energy to go. And you're also going to notice that actually the more you do that practice of crying that thing out, you can always cry and allow yourself to cry, because the crying, your body and soul is telling you that there's something that's got to be released from within the body. It is when you're going to notice that actually you are starting to see the changes in your life. You're starting to become a little bit more happier, more relieved, and more things like that. So you're going to see a very big, massive difference, especially when you when you have gone through the period of crying, because the crying doesn't usually happen like a long period of time. Some people may cry a day, people may cry 2 days, some people may even cry until a week, even 2. You know what I mean? So the soul has got to grieve. But also one thing I want to state in this video is that during the grieving process, it is very, very important. Guys, listen to this one. It's very, very important. When you're going through when you are going through the grieving process, it is very important for you to know that you cannot allow anybody to interfere with the grieving process. Now, let me repeat this. When you're grieving as a person who has broken up with the narcissist, especially I'm talking about the situation with the narcissist, when you are grieving as a person that has broken up with the narcissist, it is very important not to accept anybody to interrupt that grieving process, because when the person interrupts that grieving process, they are going to make you forget those things that you have been going through for so many years. And the more, when those people interrupt the grieving process, for example, they can interrupt it in so many ways. It can be a new relationship, it can be a new friendship. So some people may start to come in and they confuse your mind and they try to do this and try to do that. Anybody that comes in when you're grieving, when you're leaving a narcissist, when you have left a narcissist and you're in the first stages of the grieving process, we're talking about days, sometimes it can be weeks. Anybody comes and interrupts that process, that person is going to take you back to the beginning. And if that person doesn't stay in your life as a part of you, even if they stay in your life, they could even stay in your life for almost 2-3 years. And the very moment those individuals leave, because remember, like I've said, when you live with the narcissist, you're already vibrating at the NARC frequency. Now, you guys can always go back and watch my video about the NARC frequency. You already know what I'm talking about. So that person comes and interrupts the process, and they block the grieving process. Now, these emotions that have been held within you for a very long period of time, those emotions are going to be suppressed and are going to be hidden within. They're going to stop coming out and be hidden within, and they're never ever going to come out. Now, whichever person has interrupted that process, even if it's a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend or things like that, that person now, when they leave you or when you leave them, because usually those are the cases of the rebound. You guys have seen my video about the rebound. So the rebound now usually comes in to help you. They come in like good Samaritans, or they are coming in because you have been dumped by somebody, you have been discarded by somebody. So they sometimes come in like some kind of a relief. It's like a relief, or some kind of a good Samaritan who is coming in to save the situation or things like that. So when you see somebody coming in, when you are in the grieving process, that person is coming in to interrupt the process, and that healing is going to take a very long period of time. Should those guys leave, which they are going to do, of course, those kind of rebounds, they normally leave around, they normally leave around, could be like 4, 5, 6 months. Normally the rebounds, they don't take long. They could, a maximum of 6 months. It could even sometimes go up to a year, but very rarely again. So the rebounds, normally they stay a very short period of time. The very moment they discard themselves or they go out of your life, that is when they're going to reopen the wounds that have also been caused by the previous partners. You know what I mean? So the cycle now is going to come back and refresh in your brain, and now you're going to grieve 2 individuals. You're going to grieve the person that you were supposed to grieve before, and then you are also going to grieve the new person that came in and interrupted your grieving process. So now the grieving is going to become double, because now you're grieving 2 people. You're grieving the person that you left behind in the beginning, the person that caused you a lot of pain, and then at the same time, you're also grieving the person that has come in as a rebound. You know what I mean? Which is why I always advise people, sometimes my clients and the friends, I always advise people, when you have left those kind of toxic individuals, narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths, you always have to accept yourself be alone for some time. Do not accept and attempt to get into some kind of a rebound, because the rebounds, they interrupt, first of all, your grieving process, and secondly, they interrupt your healing process. So they now allow you, they now push you to start something new with somebody new that doesn't know your whole story. Yes, they may come in as good Samaritans and pretend that they're listening, but they don't really know your whole story. And most of the cases, you may even sometimes rebound with the person who is also a narcissist themselves. Now, in my early days of living the narcissist, I had 2 rebounds in those days. I remember the first weeks; those are about 3 or 4 weeks. I had the first rebound, which didn't even last up to 3 weeks, and then after that, I had another rebound, which was the greater narcissist. You know what I mean? So when I left the greater narcissist, that is when I knew that actually it was time for me to stop, because I noticed these cycles are going to keep on going on and on. Now I found myself that I had to keep on. I had to go back where I stopped, grieving the first incident. Then I had to grieve the second incident, and now I had to grieve the third incident. So that is why I shut down everything, and I went solo, and I went by myself. I started to understand that I need to heal. So I started to go through the whole process again and started to get out all this energy out of my body. So I released all the energies, including the narcissist, including the rebounds and all this kind of thing. Everybody that has ever been in my life, I started to, of course, with the greater narcissist, it did not require me a lot of work, because I already knew what was going on. I already knew what was narcissism and everything. So it did not require me a lot of work for me to release the narcissist out of my energy. So a lot of you guys out there, this video is for you. You are supposed to understand that the grieving has got to happen. It does not matter what you've lost behind, what you've left behind, what you've lost. Sometimes you may even have to grieve your own parents. You have broken up with your own parents, your own mother. In my case, when I broke up with my own family in those days, I had to grieve, because I went through some kind of a depression. You know what I mean? Because remember, we're talking about families. These are people that have been a part of you for a very long period of time. But then finally you realize that actually they do not have your best interests at heart. They're not a part of your evolution. They don't want you to evolve. So most of the cases, you have got to separate yourself from them and discard them. You know what I mean? So when you discard them, of course, even like I'm saying, the families, usually it is also going to cause you a very big period of depression, and you're going to have to grieve. So grieving is part of the process. Now, grieving is also a secret, because when you're grieving, remember, you're releasing an old energy out of your body. You're releasing all the built up emotions within your body, and you're getting it out to the surface, because those emotions have got to be healed. And the more you accept them to come out, you may sometimes grieve. People sometimes want to grieve through talking. I've seen a lot of guys who have been discarded by narcissists. Sometimes they have gone through the discard and things like that. Sometimes people, they want to come online, they talk about their stories, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I know a lot of them who are doing that online. It is also a way that you can release that energy out of your body. But you always have to know there's many ways to grieve. You can always grieve, because grieving is also part of the healing process that can make you become, later on, a better version of yourself, a healed individual, number one, and secondly, come face to face with a newer and better version of yourself. So let me know what you think about this in this video. Let me know what stage you are at your healing journey. Are you at the grieving process? Are you at the healing process? Are you at the discard? So let me know what exactly is going on in the situation, guys, in the comment section below. Much love and blessings, guys. I hope this video resonates, and of course, if it does, let me know what you think about it. Much love and blessings, guys. I'll get back in touch with you. Peace. There's a most sign.